So the next two sessions that we've got are all around data and creativity. So for us at Adform, that's actually really something that's near and dear to the heart. But I think the interesting part that we're going to hear from Daniel Rosen, who is the Global Director of Advertising for Telefonica, is really about how data can influence future media buying. With that, I'd like to introduce Daniel. Please join us on stage. Thank you so much, and give him a warm welcome.
Thanks very much, everyone. It's a great privilege and honor to be here today speaking at the Festival of Media. My name's Dan Rosen. I'm the Global Director of Advertising from Telefonica. Hopefully, many of you have heard of us already. We're a large global telco, and we're lucky enough to be selected by over 350 million people globally to provide them with the most important, the most vital service of all in today's digital world, mobile, to provide their mobile service. And today, what we see is real change. And what I'm going to talk about today is some of the changes that we see amongst our customers, and also talk about some of the things that we've seen that we can do to work together with the advertising industry, and things that we can do ourselves as a mobile operator to try and make mobile advertising better. Now, what we see is that we have a footprint that goes from the heart of Latin America to the heart of Europe. And what that gives us is probably a better vantage point to understand people and mobile than just purely looking at people through the lens of, say, London and New York, through a lens of Google and Facebook. We really get quite a unique vantage point. And what we see is that this gives us, because we provide people with this service, it gives us quite a unique vantage point. Behind me, you can see a picture of the Pope in Mexico City. Obviously, we're better than Rome to talk about the Pope, but this is him landing in Mexico City, and what the people of Mexico City were asked to do was to illuminate the path of the Pope from the airport into the city. And they chose the mobile. They chose to take this out and use their mobile torch to illuminate his path. What better way is there to show how ingrained into people's everyday life mobile has become, that they would choose to do that? This is the service that we provide to people. So we understand what they do with these devices, we understand why they use these devices, and we understand where they use them. From Bogota to Berlin, from Madrid to Montevideo, from South London to Sao Paulo, we see mobile-first behavior first in the position that we're in. I spoke last year at the Festival of Media. I was lucky enough to speak again, and I spoke about The Age of Context. This is a book by the Silicon Valley futurists, Shel Israel and Robert Scoble. If you haven't read it, I'd strongly advise you to. It tells us how the age that we're going into, consumers will be allowed to use mobile, will allow us to pull in social data, location data, to be able to change the way that consumers interact, not just with the web, but how they interact with the world around them. And what Israel and Scoble said was quite prophetic, and we're now coming into the age where this is actually now happening. This technology and this data is available for brands to be able to create really strong experiences. This data and this technology is here to not just target people or talk at people, but to be able to talk to people in a very personalized way. Now, this is really strong. It's not just understanding who you're talking to, because as what happened with the digital age, it took us from being able to just buy media to be able to buy audiences with that media. Now, because we can create that personalized experience, it really allows us to not just understand who you are, where you are, what you might be doing at the time, but also potentially some really interesting things like what mood state you might be in when a brand decides to interact with you. And it's this kind of contextual data that's available today which should be driving creativity to new levels. We are seeing that somewhere, but the reality is we're not seeing enough of it. Why is that? Partly, I think it's because, to quote Sir Martin Sorrell, the madmen and the mathmen are not working quite closely enough with each other. The advertising creatives and art directors aren't necessarily working closely together with the technologists and the data scientists. When that happens, that's when I think the real magic happens of this amazing contextually driven creative. Another bugbear and things that are holding us back is something that we call desktop thinking. If you go into an internet cafe globally, anywhere, it could be in Rome, could be in London, you'll see a picture something like this. Who here owns a laptop computer? See if I can see you. They're pretty much everyone, right? We all do. And this is what you see. You see people in internet cafes doing this. The reality is, there's a bit of a bubble that we as media professionals, I'll call us that today, that we as media professionals live in. Because the reality is real people can't afford $2,000 MacBook Pros. Real people actually are using mobile increasingly. Real people will often have a laptop that's in their back room at home that they might use once a week, maybe once a month to do things on special occasions. They'll actually prefer to use their mobile to buy things, to browse things, and we're seeing this in the data that's coming back to us. And it's this sort of chasm between a sort of media professional bubble and the reality of what's going out there and the real people that we see that we think is driving some of this desktop thinking. Desktop thinking says it's okay to have an average mobile experience. Desktop thinking says that actually people might browse a little bit of their content on the mobile, but they actually seal the deal on their laptop. Desktop thinking says that it's okay to have matching luggage, to basically take your desktop experience and just create an experience and sort of squash it down to about that big for the mobile phone. And it's these kind of experience which is driving our customers away. And we've seen time and time again, it's brands who provide people with a strong mobile experience. Our customers, when that happens, they will reward them with their attention and with their time. And here's an example of something that we've created ourselves with our partners inside the UK through Weave, using things that could only be used through mobile. Things like saving things to your calendar. That's going to make life easier for consumers. Things like swiping on your mobile phone that can only be used for mobile, or the gyroscope to create immersive experiences in a car. These are the kind of things which could be mobile only. They couldn't really be done anywhere else. And this is the kind of experiences that I think consumers are longing for, and I'm sure that there's a next wave of mobile creatives out there who are waiting to provide this kind of stuff. The other big thing, the other change that's going on in the mobile world that we can see is mobile carriers like us are starting to get more involved and show more interest in the advertising industry. I'm sure you would have seen Verizon recently buying AOL and then subsequently buying Yahoo. And a lot of, like Telefonica, like us, we recently bought Static, the location provider. There are lots of acquisitions going on inside the mobile space from carriers, and it's not just us who are thinking that. Sir Martin Sorrell himself believes that Verizon and Yahoo can be a third force in advertising. Things are changing, and we believe that mobile operators, if we do things right, we can really make mobile advertising better, and it's better for our consumers as well. And there are three key ways and three things that we're doing specifically that we think can help with our fellow carriers as well. The first is around insight. So if you look at insight and understand how important that is, any good mobile advertising campaign, you have to understand who are your customers, who are you talking to, and if the quality of your data that you're using is not up to scratch, then those people will have a substandard experience, and that's not right. So the data that you're using ideally will be strong data. Ideally, it will be first-party data. That's data which is authenticated by a billing relationship. So what we're doing is we're trying to take our first-party data, we're putting it into the market using Weave in the UK and our audience management platform, Axonics, to allow brands and agencies to be able to buy programmatically in exactly the same way as they are today, but to provide an overlay using our data. And we're really excited about what's happening in the UK with Axonics at the moment. The next thing of where we're getting involved and trying to make advertising better is through connectivity. I can remember a day when actually you'd never have considered asking consumers to pay through their data plan to consume your advertising. It doesn't sound very fair, does it? But that's actually what has happened today. So what we're trying to do is to try and make things fairer for consumers using one of our products called Sponsored Data. This is a really extreme example from Boston.com, and I feel a bit sorry for these guys because this has been around a bit and I'm sure they've sorted out their experience. But if you were to have gone to that site every day, that could have cost you $10 a month out of your data plan. Again, a real extreme example, but if you think about how much you might be paying out of your data plan just on autoplay video on Facebook or pre-roll on YouTube, you can understand the kind of cost that we're talking about here. And therefore, what we've done is try and come up with a way for brands to be able to pick up the tab for consumers' data. And so there's a product that we created in Brazil, which is the market which is most advanced in this, with a company called Netshoes, who are like the eBay of Brazil.
With gross revenue of over $500 million US in 2015 and more than 40,000 products on sale. Access via mobile phones rose from 10% of total visits in 2014 to 46% in 2015. Although there was a problem, sales were not increasing at the same pace as visits. When people accessed the Netshoes mobile site and app, they not only feared that their data package would run out during the purchase, but they also had to prioritize their use of the data plan to navigate on Facebook, WhatsApp, and other social media. In order to solve this problem, Netshoes invited all mobile phone operators in the country to be the first e-commerce firm in the world to establish free navigation on its site and mobile app. This solution would benefit more than 160 million people in the country. A massive campaign was launched to communicate this new benefit, and within only 4 months, the mobile statistics changed dramatically. For the first time, sales via mobile phones surpassed those from desktops.
So we can see there, tangibly, this isn't just about doing the right thing by your customers. There are very real rewards in terms of engagement and sales that you'll get by engaging in this kind of activity to allow brands to pick up the tab for consumers' data. And we believe that this can be the next universal brand utility. We think it could be sort of as big as 0800 used to be all those years ago. And we're now rolling it out as well onto brand advertising. So we're utilizing something called data rewards to allow uplift in completed video views with big brands like Dove. Finally, and just to finish up, we can make a difference in creativity as well. We're lucky enough to have our footprint to cover some of the most creative areas on earth, such as Brazil, such as Argentina and Peru, have an enviable pool of talent, not just amongst footballers, but amongst advertising as well. And if you look at the medal hall of Cannes Lion, you'll see that they're very well represented. So what we're doing as a carrier is next year we're going to be flying over young mobile creatives. Those young creatives who specifically created campaigns that are made for and could only have been executed on mobile. And we're going to be flying them over to the Cannes Lions. So we're trying to encourage these guys to make a difference in the kind of quality mobile creative that's come out, because we believe that we have the tools to do it today. But it's not just about awards, it's about making a real difference. And I want to make the point that creativity done well will mean that our customers will spend more money with your brand and our customers will engage more fully with your brand. Finally, I'm often asked the question, so what does a good mobile creative look like? And it's a difficult question to answer, but this is something that I've that saw from last year. Does anybody recognize this? Anybody know what this is? over there. No, this is basically the march of the Snorlax from Pokemon Go last year. The Snorlax, which is a very rare creature in Pokemon Go, was spotted in Badu Square in Taiwan. And you can see people were literally stampeding to try and get to this thing. And the best example for me of contextual creativity that we've ever seen is Pokemon Go. The way that it uses all of the sensors that are available on the device, from gyroscope to GPS, to understand where you are and how you're sitting with objects around you, it's this. And the way that this captured the imagination of customers, I don't think it's been seen before. And if brands could just start to get close to this level of imagination and capturing imagination, I think we're going to be in a very good place. So, so just to finish off, just some advice, just to summarize what I said today. Use the best data that's authenticated with a billing relationship, first party if you can. Try and understand what's your customer's relationship with their connectivity. Can you help out at all? And finally, let's reject that desktop thinking and make sure that our creative teams are working with our technology and data teams to try and create that magic. Thank you very much for your time.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. I think we've got time for probably one question, so I don't know if there's anyone in the audience, any questions about what Telefonica is doing? Some great executions. No? All right, perfect. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.